However, each time we shut down a business or urge the nation to self-isolate in an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19, we damage the economy. Workers lose jobs and the desperate line-up outside Centrelink offices grow. The government then has to pour billions into propping up the economy. Even the Treasurer is talking in terms of millions eventually being unemployed. Millions. With a rate tipped to balloon out to around 11%. So what damage is really being done at the front line to the economy and our markets? And is there genuine relief for small business which may keep them viable for when this crisis passes? Let's get the inside story from accountant, investment advisor and superannuation expert Anthony Bell. Anthony, thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well. So we're spending madly to prop up the economy, to bridge the economy, as they say, but the stock market, I noticed, in the last couple of days has rebounded. So how bad is the Australian economy right now?
Well, massive bounce this week, Chris. We started with a bad end to last week. The Australian market was down at unprecedented lows. 36% had come off since February 21. Great week on Wall Street. Opened up US stimulus package at $2 trillion. Set up for a really good week in Australia, and we bounced back. We had a massive bounce back, but we're still 28% now down from where the market was steady back in that mid-February period. Is it over? Are we about to climb? A lot of economists were talking about a V economy where it tears straight down and straight back up. We've had a small rise. We're talking maybe a W or perhaps a U, but it's you'd be very cavalier to say that we're out of the worst of it.
So it may be that the worst is yet to come, but how long can the economy sustain that kind of damage?
Look, we're government from around the world. When we look at all the other governments, the actual Morrison government is stimulating the economy more than most other economies in the first world economic climates. We're pouring everything into it, Chris. There's a stimulus package coming out every second day. We're producing really strong support from our government for business. The question is will it be enough? And sort of again, the real test is timing. How quickly we can actually come out of this health crisis, which is fast turning into a world economic crisis at greater speeds.
OK, let's just say that Monday of next week they decide to call a total lockdown, and that would begin on Thursday and cover Easter and beyond for, say, 4 weeks. A total lockdown, what will that do to the numbers?
Well, it's going to stop. See, there's still some business that are trading right now. We've seen that we're at level 2, and I think a level 3 lockdown was actually built in by the futurists for this week. And there's a little bit of confidence now coming through that we may not go into total lockdown, and the markets, today and yesterday are resembling that. If we do go into a lockdown, it almost certainly will knock-on effect to our stock markets. Property is the big question mark in Australia. Will it hold up? It's the favourite investment of Australians. It has a direct link to confidence in the market. Yeah. I'd like to think that we're strong here in Australia in property. We're undervalued compared to the rest of the world. But again, if we go to total lockdown, we've already seen that open houses for properties can't be attended now with groups of less than 5. But we're a pretty innovative group in our real estate industry. So rather than heading to the open houses, the stage of Australian retail property sales has already moved to innovative private sales to actually keep that going. So provided we can just stick in there and stay in there, and our mainstay assets of property and consumer confidence, which is linked to business, and we get going again, we may not, gentlemen, sort of suffer more huge losses. But in saying that, got to be across the hospitality industry, Chris. I mean, it's heartbreaking. You see the dole queues. Those visions of Australian small business that are watching that happen is forcing business owners to really compress and contract their business. The content between the fine line between looking after your employees, which is a great Aussie thing to do and a smart leadership thing to do, and survival is actually starting to become quite a thin line, and those decisions have to be made really carefully.
So some of the things the government has done, especially in the second tranche, are they genuine lifelines for business? And what's your advice to a small business person who's probably quaking at the knees right now?
Yeah, look, the stimulus packaging, particularly the ability to get bank lending, is important. In the words, sort of the most important business acumen of all time, the cash flow economy is the most important part. Real cash, real ability to be able to pay wages, pay expenses, and so business owners have to protect that cash to see them through what is probably now a 6-month plan, with a little bit of optimism that to say if we do actually contain this, if we do pull in, if we even do go to a total lockdown, then the possibility of Australians going and having a cold beer by the 1st of July needs to be clearly and pressed to have hope and clarity around that, which will mean that the confidence level will come back and we'll be able to look behind and say we're through the worst of this terrible virus.
So are you confident enough to say that we can avoid a double-digit unemployment rate?
No, I'm not, Chris. You just have to look at the sectors of the business that have been hit now, and physically to just shut so many people out of the economy. And it's not only just people losing their jobs; it's people taking really large pay cuts as well. We haven't had that reporting through. So on the unemployment rate, of course, we can see a climb upwards on that. But what it's not reporting is those who've had up to 50 or 60% pay cuts this week. That will also have a knock-on effect. They can't buy services. They can't spend money on other businesses or on other employees, and that then will have a knock-on, and that's the part that's concerning me most. In saying that, this is what sort of most business has to have an attitude right now of just sticking up and taking care of itself and surviving. So even if we hear those terrible words of stand down, the idea and the concept behind that isn't that you've lost your job. It's just hold out so our business can survive, and then come back when things lift, and you'll have a place of work to go to rather than the shell of a liquidated company.
Yeah, these are hectic times. Anthony Bell from Bell Partners, thank you very much for your time, mate.
Thanks, Chris.